I told them and they laughed. I told them and they didn't believe. But here we are. And we're here because of this unbelievable group of people, players and staff, absolute heroes, led by the legend, son Heung-Min. Kuti Rivera, James Madison, and Guillermo Vicario. All of them, heroes. And they did it all for you. Because you deserve it. This club deserves it. And I'll tell you something, I'll leave you with this. All the best television series, season 3 is better than season 2. Thank you.
Hello and welcome to the Last Word on Spurs. We are your multi-award winning Tottenham Hotspur podcast, and we do return. We have been waiting, and the news that for some feared, for some hoped, Ange Postecoglou has parted company with Tottenham Hotspur and has been sacked by Daniel Levy. That was the judgment. That was the decision Tottenham Hotspur's board had come to. And that is what we're going to be digging into in this show. And the potential of, at the moment, a number of candidates being lined up to potentially replace Ange Postecoglou. But the one that is primarily in the frame, as we understand on this Last Word on Spurs, is Thomas Frank. I want to say thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much for watching us throughout what's been a crazy, chaotic season. And for the last 7-8 years, for those that have followed us on this journey, I'm joined by fabulous, returning regular guests to Last Word on Spurs. You know their faces. You know their voices. And look, I wanted to say on the top of this show, there's been a lot of different feelings throughout the season. And it has been, as what Ange Postecoglou described, it could be a roller coaster. Feelings have changed, that's fair to say. Throughout the campaign, there's been some that have been on the Ange train, there's some that hasn't been on the Ange train. But the reality is that the one common goal that brings all Tottenham fans together out there is we all want success for the football club. And that is what Ange Postecoglou delivered. You know, he delivered Tottenham their first European trophy in over 40 years. He ended a 17-year trophy drought for the club. So I want to say at the very, very top of this show, thank you, Ange Postecoglou, on behalf of all of us for giving us one of the greatest nights in our modern history. Really important I say that. I'm joined by, on this show, back at his conductor station, Lee McQueen is back on the show, as is the wonderful Darren Hartman returning to the screens, and the brilliant Russ Williams and the superb Patrick Tarrant edition of Last Word on Spurs. We'll be having some late night subs on this edition of Last Word on Spurs that will be rolling in. Some will be rolling out. And I want to say at the very, very top of this show, really important, I think, what goes into this show that we're going to bring to you. We urge you to please keep liking, please keep subscribing, as we want this to go out to a worldwide Tottenham audience. But before I ask the guys' opinions on Ange Postecoglou being sacked, let's bring you up to date. If you aren't aware of the latest and what Tottenham have done in the latest episode of drama, which is Tottenham Hotspur Football Club, they have sacked Ange Postecoglou, and the Australian departs Tottenham despite leading the club to Europa League glory in May. And as we know, Ange's future has dominated the headlines across the 24-25 season after Tottenham finished a disappointing, I've got to say, you can't even use the word disappointing, horrendous 17th place in the Premier League. We know from what Ange just said, there's been a mitigating factors for that. He guided the club in their first season under his helm to a 5th place finish. That was despite losing Harry Kane. As we know, in that first season, they were to exit the Carabao Cup to Fulham at the first time of asking away, and they then crashed out in a home defeat to Manchester City of the FA Cup, making it clear, as Ange did, that he always wins trophies in his second season. That is exactly what that man did. Our historic 1-0 win against Manchester United, courtesy of a Brennan Johnson goal, saw around 250,000 Tottenham fans at a victory parade. And what, bringing you up to date in the last 12, 13 days, speculation has surrounded the future of Ange Postecoglou as to whether he will be given that third season or whether he will be judged purely on that league form and will exit the football club. We have now had that confirmation from the club that this statement has read from them directly following a review of performances, and after a significant reflection, the club can announce that Ange Postecoglou has been relieved of his duties. Ange joined us from Celtic in the summer of 2023 and oversaw a period of change on the pitch, returning us to an attacking brand of football that had been traditionally associated with the football club, while also writing a new chapter in our history by leading us to UEFA Europa League glory in Bilbao last month, an achievement that will live with us forever. We are extremely grateful to Ange for his commitment and his contribution during his 2 years at the football club. Ange will always be remembered as only the third manager in our history to deliver a European trophy alongside legendary figures Bill Nicholson and Keith Birkinshaw. However, the board have unanimously concluded that it is in the best interest of the football club for a change to take place. Following a positive start in the 23-24 season, we recorded 78 points from the last 66 Premier League games available. That culminated in our worst ever Premier League finish. At times, there were extenuating circumstances, injuries, and then a decision to prioritise our European campaign. Whilst winning the Europa League, this season ranks as one of the greatest moments in our club's history. We cannot base our decision on emotions aligned to the triumph. It is crucial that we are able to compete on multiple fronts and believe a change of approach will give us the strongest chance for the coming season and beyond. This has been one of the toughest decisions we have ever had to make as a board. We have made what we believe to be the right decision to give us the best chance of success going forward, not the easy decision. We believe we have got a talented squad, a young squad, and Ange has given us a great platform to build upon that. We should like to express our gratitude to him. We wish him all the best for the future. He will always be welcome at our home. News on the appointment of a new head coach will be announced in due course. That was the statement from the football club. And I may add, to date of this recording, we have not had a statement from Daniel Levy as of yet on the exit of Ange Postecoglou. Let's get immediate reaction from the panel before we bring in Ange's thoughts on leaving the club. Lee, what's your take? Ange Postecoglou, the latest in a long line of Tottenham managers to depart the club, but as we mentioned, in doing so, leaves the club on the back of a European trophy, ending a 17-year trophy drought. Immediate feelings for you?
Well, I wish him all the best. He gave me the best week in my footballing life, without a shadow of a doubt. It's after the watershed, isn't it? It was fucking amazing. So excuse my language, but it was absolutely fucking epic. And for that, I'll be eternally grateful. Look, I'm a stats man. I'm a data guy, as you all know. Some of them statistics, yeah, the amount of losses, excuse me, the amount of cumulative losses as well over a 2-season period. It's not great reading. Look, I think for me, I'm gutted. I think that he has the ability to do better than what he had. No one's going to care now about, you know, the injury crisis and so on and so forth. But, you know, we had 30 games last year. We had 60 games. We played 60 matches, and 30 of their matches was without VDV and Romero at the same time. You know, that is a huge gap to fill, and we filled that gap not only with substandard, and I appreciate it. I mean that with just due respect, but substandard players against them two that you got on the screen for the listeners. We're showing VDV and Romero on screen, but not only substandard, but they were actually a rookie midfielder playing as a centre back in the very talented Archie Gray. Don't get me wrong, but he played 30 games as a rookie midfielder as a centre back. So, I think that there's some circumstances. I think what this shows is that there's a huge split and a huge divide, even in the five of us today on the panel, and it's all amicable. It's not, no one's right or wrong. It's just how you feel. And there was an emotion there. I heard you on Sky earlier with Mike Rick. It was an excellent interview at Sky Sports News. Go and check that out. And talking about kind of the emotion versus the ruthlessness. But there's also some statistics that back up that we've had 3 terrible campaigns in the Premier League under this ownership. 3 terrible campaigns. All of which came, or 2 of which came after we won a trophy, and that is 17th in the league, obviously this season, after winning a European trophy for the first time in 41 years, that no other absolute winner could do in that time. Poch, Redknapp, Yol, Conte, Nuno, Jose Mourinho, none of them could do it. None of them could do it. And this guy's come in and stepped up and said, hey, I'm going to do it. And he did. And no one, unless you're not a Tottenham fan in the group, no one would take away what we've just had to finish 12th, 13th, 8th, even 5th. In my opinion, you have the right to reply on that, because that week, or that kind of 10, 11 days, I can't say 12 days now, can I? That's just been ruined. But we can't have nice things as Spurs fans. But so you can't look at it. So out of 24 years, we've had 3 terrible Premier League campaigns, yeah? But out of 24 years, we've had 68 terrible cup campaigns. 60 freaking 8. So you stick that in your pipe, because we've only had one final of note, 2 finals if you look at the League Cup against Man City. We've never been to an FA Cup final in the last 24 years. And we've gone and ended up winning a trophy. So the statistics of 22 Premier League defeats are disgraceful. There's no doubt about that. But if you put our average position in the Premier League over this ownership, is 6.6, 6.5. Right? So we finished between 6th and 7th on average. That's obviously been brought down. It is clear as day that the Premier League is more important than winning trophies. Now, I think finishing 17th, if we hadn't won a trophy, we wouldn't have been debating this. Ange would have gone the next day. But I think winning a trophy is, for us, for this football club, is very, very, very important. I mean, all the Spursy, goodbye. Wore a trophy, see you later. Yeah, all the banter completely disappeared on that one night. So when people say to me, yeah, but Lee, it's only just one night. Don't yeah, but Lee. It's changed the way we are. There's Spurs fans watching right now live. There's over 8,000 people watching this now live, and everyone will watch it back. There's Spurs fans here that have never seen anybody lift a trophy. There's Spurs fans that are not even 24 years old. They've never seen a different ownership. So that has to be taken into consideration. That said, all of that said, this is not a typical board decision. We'll get into it later when you start grilling me on it, Rick. But this is not a typical board decision, and this is not a Daniel Levy decision. I can tell you that for a fact. This is not a Daniel Levy decision. There is something bigger than football going on right now at Tottenham Hotspur, and I think everybody, in the end, when the dust settles, will be very, very happy with how this ends up and works out. But we're just talking about Ange right now. I wish him all the best. He batted for us. He loved us. He's one of us, and you have to respect that. And he won the trophy. He came out and said, hey, I'm going to do it. And he did it. Fair play to him. But let's see what happens now, yeah?
Yeah, we do. Look, I know there's a lot of us to get through. We're going to roll around. Right. Russ, I'm going to come to you if you don't mind. Russ, I know it's been difficult for you this season. I said I'm going to put you on a boat, and in the space of 8 days, I brought you back and put you back.
Yeah.
You just can't get away. I mean, listen, Russ, I think it's fair to say that throughout this campaign, and I think in the back end of the last season as well, you're you've been heavily critical in terms of Ange Postecoglou, in terms of the nature of the Premier League results and the way Tottenham tactically set up. What is your reaction to the news Tottenham have sacked him? Is that, in your mind, the right decision Tottenham have come to as a football club?
Well, look, it's a bit raw. We're standing around the grave, a recently buried person. The human in me feels quite sorry for him, and I can understand the way that a lot of the fan base feel that he should have been given another season, or at least started it. But the football fan in me just says that the Premier League form, and the Premier League is the catwalk of English football, it's how you're judged, was just totally unsurvivable. There just can't be a debate about it. I mean, I said a couple of weeks ago on one of the final shows of the season, and this is after we won the Europa League, on balance, I can see no footballing reason why Ange Postecoglou should stay as the manager of Spurs. And I recognise that we've got a fan base with maybe 30-40% of the Spurs fans think that he should still be the Spurs manager. And as Lee said, you know, we're not going to fall out about it. We all have different opinions, but the club have ultimately made the decision. The one thing that I would say before I move on is I do think the way he was treated after the Europa League victory up to and including today by the club was once again not great. It was pretty disrespectful. He has won us a major trophy. He will always be in our history. He will always have a little special place in our hearts. All that, whatever your disposition towards him and his football is, I think we can all agree on that. But we mustn't forget the tactics, you know, the terrible results. And I hear what Lee and other people say about Archie Gray's playing in the central defence, and he's right. The injuries were an issue, but they were for Ange at Celtic. They were for Ange at Yokohama, where in his first season, he avoided relegation by goal difference. So he's got a bit of form with this flirting potentially with relegation. And I actually think that there's so much money, once again, we come back to it, in the game, and it's important to Spurs, that even to slightly flirt with the possibility of relegation spooked them. Apart from the football that they saw, and I do agree with Lee, and I know he's going to talk about it later, and he's far better informed than me, that this isn't entirely a Daniel Levy decision. There are additions now to the hierarchy at Spurs, notably Peter Charrington, who, for the people who don't know, is somebody that ENIC bring in as a troubleshooter to sort out problems. So it might be, I'm just speculating, that Daniel Levy is getting his collar felt right now because his record is not good. We are going to pay Ange Postecoglou off correctly. It's how it works. We've paid him his bonus for winning the Europa League. And if Thomas Frank is coming in, reportedly, it's £9 million worth of compensation to Brentford. So that's going to take us, we go back a few weeks when I said, look, here's the evidence, £90 million worth of payoffs for managers and coaching staff under these owners. That is essentially going to take us to 100 million. I mean, that's a hell of a player, isn't it? We could have bought a Harry Kane. I know it doesn't work that way, but these are telephone numbers that we're having to witness as Spurs fans going out of the club instead of being invested in the team. But to go back to Ange, we're grateful for what he did. This is a harsh, brutal sport, and he may find another job pretty quickly. If he does, I wish him well. I don't know whether he will. He might take some time off. He can certainly financially afford to, and, you know, gather his thoughts and go again. I think he is one of those blokes that can do that. But, you know, I would remind people that apart from the football that was absolutely dreadful, he was surly. He called out the fans in public. You don't do that when you're the manager of a football club. The writing's on the wall, because not only with the fans, with the hierarchy of the club as well, cupping his ear. Do you remember that? The away fans, He wouldn't come out after a bad result. He'd storm down the tunnel. He wouldn't look at the camera in interviews. I mean, all of this stuff came together probably as pressure for him, but it was self-inflicted pressure. He was the one who made the decision, apparently, and I'm still not sure whether it's true. All we're going to do is go for the Europa League. I don't think big clubs allow managers to make that decision. That's why I'm skeptical about whether that was actually taken. I could be wrong, but I suspect I'm probably right. So there was a myriad of things that have contributed to his downfall, and it's glorious failure for him as a manager at Tottenham Hotspur. We had a brilliant night, but if we're truthful, we were fortuitous. It was a dreadful game. We got over the line and we won a trophy, and we got that monkey off our back. It's brilliant. And now we have to move forward. But whoever comes in, you can't just sign a contract and say, okay, well, we're going to be Spursy. I understand. I'm going to take the money. Whoever comes in has got to be a manager who's got balls to say, I'm not signing for you, and I know you want me, unless you guarantee me this, that, and the other. The club start being realistic about wages for players coming in for the Champions League. It's going to cost them. And Daniel Levy has to be prized out of the straitjacket of Spurs that he's very comfortable in, because it isn't going to work. It is going to be back to the future, rinse and repeat, unless we get a strong, confident coach who has turned up to talk to them, negotiate with them, and has said, I'm not coming unless you do this, 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 and this. And, it might not be easy to get a new coach, but, I suspect, as Lee said, Thomas Frank is the front runner, and, went into Brentford, assistant to Dean Smith, did well. Dean left, got the job, has done well with Brentford. They play a reasonable standard of football, certainly better standard of football than we played last season. But for him, it'll be a natural progression in his career. Big club, Spurs. Maybe after that, if he does well with us, if he comes in, please God, a bigger club, if that's possible. And then international management. It's a good career path for him. But there may be other names. And, I'm disappointed for Ange, but I'm not remotely surprised. And, I have not flip-flopped on this. And like all of us who have an opinion, you get people who disagree with you and you have to debate with them and all that kind of stuff. And I'm happy to do that. I have always said, Ricky, and you'll back me up on this, about last November, I said, I don't think this is going to work. Yeah. And I can't see him working out. But he won a trophy. And for that, he should be thanked and he should be respected. And I actually think the club have shown him some disrespect since winning the Europa League in the way that they've dealt with this. But are we surprised?
Russ, thank you so much. We're going to come over to Darwin and Pat. Darwin, I want to bring you in. We are hearing a lot of reports that the dressing room are particularly disappointed by this decision from the club to relieve Ange Postecoglou of his duties. From what we're hearing, there is a lot of anger amongst the current set of Spurs players. The sources claiming some want to leave the club and that the Australian successor will have a huge, huge task to repair the dressing room damage that has been done by sacking Ange Postecoglou. Your thoughts on that, Darwin, overall, the feelings of Ange Postecoglou leaving the football club?
Oh, where do I start? I've always been one who was giving Ange a chance. You know that. Last Word On Spurs family, you know that. I've been giving him a chance all the way through. And I thank him immensely, as Lee said, for the week he gave us, for that night, for the joy, for the unity that our fan base had, for that night. Because we know that throughout this season, there's been lots of split opinions. And there's split opinions here on this screen, and there's split opinions in people's WhatsApp groups. And Ricky, you made a really good point about we were united for success. The reason why I'm not happy is because I don't know what the future looks like for Tottenham. What do you say to a new manager? What is their expectation? What do you classify as success? I don't know how you win as a manager at Tottenham. I don't know how, as fans, we get success. Because from what I read of that statement, from what I took from it, we didn't compete on all fronts. Tottenham does not have a squad the infrastructure to compete on all fronts. Look at that squad there. That is not a squad that can compete with Arsenal, Liverpool, Man City, Chelsea. It cannot compete. It's not got what it needs. We spoke about this at pre-season. First game of the season, we sat on pods going, this squad has issues. There's no cover left back. We're worried about how young they are, how inexperienced they are. Over Richarlison that always gets injured. Solanke's coming into a new side. There were so many if, buts, maybes, and question marks. And this side done a miracle and won a trophy with a gaffer who people said was inadequate, wasn't good enough to be our gaffer. And if we just look at statistics, we can use them to satisfy our arguments, whichever way we want to argue. We can say that he didn't do well enough in the league. He finished 17th. That is sackable. And it makes sense. You look at his European run and you go, he won the trophy. That's enough to keep his job. So I can understand the arguments both ways. I'm arguing over things that we can't change. We can't change the fact that he's been sacked. My fear is what Spurs do now. My fear is that we go back on a 2-year rebuild. My fear is that we lose the gold and the joy and the unison that has been created from this victory in our fan base and in our squad. As Ricky Norwood made a joke with me, he said, we can only celebrate for 4 days and then this happens. And it feels like we're in that cycle again. And I don't want to be there again. We don't deserve as fans to be there again. But I understand the board had to make a hard choice. I'm not sure if it's right. I'm not sure if Thomas Frank is right. I'm not sure if there is a manager that would want the job. Russell made a great point. A manager will want to come in and go, I want X, Y, and Z. If our infrastructure is what it is now, because it hasn't changed now, remember, I go on what it is. Daniel Levy is still our chairman. He's still in control. If he's in control, if he's making decisions, if this is what's happening, who is going to make him give them what they want? Ange couldn't get the players he wants. Mourinho couldn't get the players he wants. Conte couldn't get the players he wants. You can't get what you want. But what we got as fans was a manager who stuck his neck out for himself, for his pride, for the young squad that we had, and pulled off a miracle. It was a miracle. And we celebrated it, we enjoyed it. And now the dust has settled and we're back in a mess. And that's my issue. The dust settles and Tottenham Hotspur is back in a mess. Lee made a great comment. We got rid of all of the banter. We removed it all. And then what do? We give them a gift. Now you sack your manager. Now you're stuck here. Now you don't know what you're doing. Now you're a shambles again. Tottenham Hotspur, don't do this to us again. This next appointment needs to be right. The structure needs to be right. And as fans, we're going to have to hold our tongues. We're going to have to give full support to whatever it is next because we're not in control of it. We don't have the power. All we have the power to is support our side. I nearly put a black t-shirt on today. I was like, it feels like we're mourning today. It feels like we go, oh, Tottenham, what are we doing now? So I am worried. I am very, very worried because I don't know what the future holds. I don't know if we're going to get it right. Because remember, Ange wasn't the choice we wanted. He wanted us. He wanted this challenge. He wanted to come to this club. He saw it as an uplift for him, and he's done what he's done. But a lot of fans didn't want him. Now who we getting? I'm Rick, team, I'm literally concerned. The Dr. Hartman, the therapy's out. This could be a treacherous summer. We could be in for another bumpy ride and another 2-year rebuild. And by that time, I'm sure I'll have grey in my beard. Come on, Tottenham. What we doing? What we doing?
If we're losing the heart, man, we have got problems. He's the psychiatrist we'll go to on this show. We have got big problems. I'm going to bring in Pat in a second. The front cover of the Times are reflecting the fact their headline, and it goes back to maybe what Lee and Hartman touched upon there. Their headline says, it used to be about glory. You know, we're giving these headlines away already. Pat, let's bring you in. I mean, it's similar to Russ, if you don't mind me saying, Pat. You know, I think, and look, even I put me in that, category to some degree. I've been very skeptical, I have to say, over the last 12, 18 months, whether Ange Postecoglou's brand of football is going to be sustainable over a 38-game season. I think, look, for people out there, they've got their rights to be concerned. And, Jason's accused me of flip-flopping. What I have said, look, for someone that, again, for me, I've been very much concerned about if we are able to be, in a way, sustainable under Ange. When I look at the candidates that come next for Tottenham and what Ange has delivered for me, despite all of what I've said for a lot of the season and the previous one, I still felt for me Ange deserved the chance to start season 3 based on the candidates that we're currently being presented with. That's my feeling. Pat, let's come over to you because you also, like me, have shared your concern, your worry through not only the campaign just gone, but the one before that, over the Premier League results, the brand of football, the style of play. How do you feel on the back of the news that Ange Postecoglou has now been let go by the football club?
Oh man, first and foremost, want to say hello to everyone that's on the panel. It's been great listening, just sitting back and enjoying everyone's views and opinions. Obviously, everyone in the comments, spam the comments, like, subscribe, share it. Get this amongst all the Spurs fans worldwide. And thanks for tuning in, especially if you're listening tomorrow. Thank you for tuning in, listening, watching in, and yeah, share, like, and subscribe, man. Because Vicky doesn't say it enough. I think this is the best podcast out there amongst the Spurs community, and it deserves more coverage, even though it's got a massive network. Let's get out there, people. But anyway, obviously we're here for a real emergency and something that's just happened. And yeah, I mean, obviously listening to you guys, I totally differ from what most of you lot are saying. I'm not concerned. I felt it needed to be done. It was a hard decision, but it was the right decision for me. I think you can't go back from losing 22 games. You can't go back or come back from being 17th, and you can't come back from the worst thing ever, 22 losses. 22 losses. So when you look at all of that from a footballing standpoint, and I get what you guys are saying, but I don't know how you build off of that and go into next season. I think as well, I don't want to sound ungrateful. I know that winning a trophy is the be all and end all, and it is everything. And obviously that was a fantastic night, and it was a glorious moment, partying with pretty much all the Tottenham contingent across North London, outside the stadium. But let's have it right. It wasn't a miracle. We were the favourites going into that competition. We were literally, we were third and fourth the whole season. We threw away the top 4. We were so rubbish at the end of the season. And a lot of us fans were like, you know what, let's actually go for Europa because it's a competition that we can win. And we won it. Let's not change the narrative and the story now. We were the best team in the Europa League last season.
Pat,
we were though. Hartman, we finished fifth, Hartman. Let me just land on this point. 1 second. We finished fifth, 2 points off Aston Villa in 4th. We were the favourites going into the competition. So we finished the highest place in all across Europe. The Premier League is undoubtedly the best league in Europe. That's clear. Just from even the coefficiency, how many teams we get in the Premier League. Two teams got to the final this year. You had a team in the semi-final. Chelsea won the Conference League. It's clear we're the best team in the best league in the Premier League. So it's not a miracle. We have a very good squad, a very good starting 11. It's obviously when the injuries come in, the substitutes aren't as strong as they should be, but it wasn't a miracle. And I think any decent coach should have won us that Europa League. Let's have it right. The reason why the guy got sacked is because the Premier League form was so bad, it's scary to think what can happen next season when you put this manager in the Champions League and the Premier League. And I think a lot of fans have been essentially brainwashed by the fact that we won the trophy, and they're not living in the real world. The real world is next season with this guy, it will be catastrophic. So the right thing was done. And I know it sounds horrible and it's harsh. And I even put a tweet out saying if you take emotion out of it, this was the right decision. And I get fans saying without emotion, but you have to look at what's gone on. You have to look at how bad we were. You have to look at the fact that there was no identity. There was no tactics. There's no in-game management. This guy's substitutions made no sense. The starting lineups made no sense. Nothing really made sense going into the back end of the season. He threw all his eggs in the Europa League basket. Thankfully, it came true. But again, if you look at the final, it wasn't a great performance. We were quite fortuitous. And sometimes you need that. You need that in 90 minutes, But let's have it right. I don't think when we take a step back and look at it, I don't really understand why there's so much uproar. We talk about being a big club. We talk about, having the right mentality. And the fans need to also believe that. Any big club, any decent club would have sacked this manager way before we got to where we got to. So even though he won a trophy, you look at Chelsea, you look at even Man United when they made a mistake not sacking Ten Hag. But Chelsea have won numerous trophies with managers and got rid of them. I think it's a time now where this club has to turn the corner and act like a big club. If you want to be a big club, you need to act like a big club. So for me, I just think that take a step back, people, and actually look at what happened. Remember being 3-0 down to Everton at half-time. Remember not beating Tamworth in 90 minutes. Remember this manager cupping his ear to the fans when we equalised, but then went on to lose the game. Remember this manager chastising fans who wanted us to lose to Man City so we could qualify for the Europa League, even though that would have meant if we beat them, Arsenal would have won the league, and how he acted, even though we had lost 10, 15 games before that. Remember this guy always taking off Maddison, our best player and best creative player, when we were chasing games, even though Maddison was playing well. There's so many things I could go on and on and on about. So I just think that let's actually be realistic and look at what's happened.
Hartman, you want to come back in there before we go for the first break? What did you want to say about the Pat?
I think that it's so interesting because obviously people talk about being emotional and taking emotion out of it. And it's that half empty, half full. People look at it from different perspective. And I'm never going to be one to go, you're wrong, you're right. To say that we were favourites in the UK. The UK betting market, we were favourites. We weren't favourites in Spain. Bilbao were. We weren't favourites in Spain. And it works differently. It's different vantage points. It's how you view it. And I think it's easy to, as I said in my comment earlier about the statistics, it's easy to make the stats read for you if that's the narrative you want to support. And I feel that that's why it's hard right now, because we talk about being a big club. I feel that's also a problem within our fan base of the identity of what makes us a big club and what is success for a big club. And I don't think we all will agree on what that is. And I don't even think our board would agree, because winning a trophy will quantify being a big club in some clubs. Crystal Palace winning their first trophy, Newcastle winning a trophy, Arsenal not winning anything this year puts them in a situation where they're not regarded as a club that's successful or winning. But we're now going to be in a situation where could it be that finishing top 4, top 5 is success, is the win? Is that what we want? And I feel that all this does again is split us up. It splits the narrative. It splits the fan base again. It has Patrick on one side going, you've got to see it from this angle. And then you've got someone else going, no, but I'm seeing it from this angle. And we had one day of unity. We had one day where we were successful together. And I feel that right now it's imperative that we get a Levy comment, we get some clarity, and we get a vision. Because what Pat's wanting, does the board want? What Lee's asking for, are the board going to give? Thomas Frank, if it's him, is he the one to do that? Is he going to do what Richard said and ask for certain things and be guaranteed that? That's the concern. As I said, I'm not going backwards. I don't care about finishing 17th. We were not relegated. We were never, ever in a relegation battle because the 3 teams at the bottom were that crap. They were always going down. And maybe that was a conversation that we weren't privy to. And Ange went, we're not going down. So I'm not going to waste my fragile squad on these games and upset people as he has and hasn't for whatever side of the camp you are on that. But it's the mess we're in now that is concerning. That's where I'm at.
Look, guys, we do need to squeeze in our first break of the show for our listeners and audio. We're going to do it right now. When we come back, we're going to summarise on Ange very quickly. I think give him rightly his flowers for what he gave to Tottenham. Was our first European trophy in over 40 years, ending a 17-year trophy drought. And I think Dow has already kind of touched upon it briefly, and Maka is definitely going to tell us more as to what comes next. Only Tottenham do you get these kind of stories. Taking you into this break, you're going to hear from Ange Postecoglou in one of his motivational team talks that he gave to the players ahead of the Europa League final, following the club's progression through from the semi-finals. Let's hear from Ange, and we'll be back after this very, very short break.
I've said it before that what you, as a group, players and staff, have gone through this year. Oh, big dog. Come on, boys.
Come on! Hey!
Shush, quiet. As I said, what you've gone through this year, let me tell you, I've been in this game a long time. I'm very experienced. I've experienced it all, but I'm so proud of how all of you have just stuck together. Yeah? Not one time have I felt like, people are not believing or have lost what we have in here, and it's just outstanding. People will never realise what it's taken for you guys to be in this position, and you deserve all the credit for that. That's unbelievable what you've done. To come to this place, difficult place, win comfortably, but the whole time through, all the things we've had to deal with. There's people who aren't with us today, yeah? Who are back home. Fraser's played a big part of it, and Sonny's played a big part of this. Matters, Lucas, Radu, they've all played a big part. Everyone's contributed. And that's the main thing that's got us to this point. Yeah, we've had problems for sure, but we've stuck together. And you deserve it. Now we've got 2 weeks, just under 2 weeks to prepare. Every day is important. Yeah? Every day, every training session, every game we have between now and then is about getting ready for that big game. Well, you can change things. You saw what you did. 400 supporters here today. They'll never forget it. And there's thousands back home. You can make it something really special. I keep saying to you, this is the group of players that are going to do it. So we focus on that from now on, but you deserve all the credit. It's been outstanding. So from tomorrow, we focus, yeah? Tonight,
obviously was very, very clear from that interview for our...
Time ago now, that, doesn't it? Eh? Long time ago now, eh?
I think what's very, very clear from that interview and subsequently since that at the parade, that for those that were there and obviously watched it, was the fact of the bond that Ange Postecoglou has struck up with many of the players, and those same players are now pouring out their feelings and emotions on social media. Dominic Solanke thanking Ange Postecoglou for bringing him to the football club, bringing him that first European trophy, of course. I think it's that key to mention. You've got the likes, of course, of Richarlison also thanking the manager. Big Ange always bags a trophy in his second season. Pedro Porro also giving Ange his flowers. And just on that point, I'm just going to bring in, if I can, before I go back to the guys, Ange Postecoglou's statement. I will just say we have got in the show here nearly over 10,000 of you that are watching the show live. Thank you so much, as always, for all your incredible support for Last Word On Spurs. We urge you to keep liking. Please keep subscribing to the show. It's going to be a very, very busy period, I'm sure, for us here on Last Word On Spurs. And thank you to this wonderful panel that are assembling themselves to make themselves available for an emergency one. It's Tottenham, right? You never know what's going to drop. We're going to bring you very quickly Ange Postecoglou's statement that he has said personally, and that's come via the agency CAA Base. He says, when I reflect upon my time as manager of Tottenham Hotspur, my overriding emotion is one of pride. The opportunity to lead one of England's historic football clubs and bring back the glory it deserves will live with me for a lifetime. Sharing that experience with all those who truly love this club and seeing the impact it had on them is something I will never forget. That night in Bilbao was the culmination of 2 years of hard work, dedication, and unwavering belief in a dream. There were many challenges to overcome and plenty of noise that comes with trying to accomplish what many said was not possible. We've also laid the foundations that mean the club should not have had to wait more than 7 years, or 17 years, should I say, for their next success. I have enormous faith in this group of players, and I know there's much more potential and growth in them. I sincerely want to thank those who are the lifeblood of the club, the supporters. I know there were some difficult times, but I always felt they wanted me to succeed, and they gave me all the motivation I needed to push on. It's important to also acknowledge the hard-working people at Spurs who gave me encouragement on a daily basis. Finally, I want to thank those that were with me every day for the last 2 years. A fantastic group of young men who are now legends of this football club, and the brilliant coaches who never once doubted what we could do, bringing something special. We are forever connected. Aude est SACKED. Those were the words of Ange Postecoglou in that statement. I have to be honest with you, look, for someone like me that I haven't got that attached to a manager probably since Mauricio Pochettino, I don't think you can help but be somewhat sad by the words Andy's using. I think he really did, no matter what the feeling was out there, I think he really did care about the football club. And I think he was truly wanting to bring success here. It's really, really tricky. I mean, Russ, I can see you're keen to come in. I'm going to bring Russ in just 1 second. I will just very, very quickly say, as I said in the middle part of the show, we are hearing a number of reports that there's a lot of anger in the Spurs dressing room and reports that a lot of players want to leave the football club following Ange Postecoglou leaving his position and being sacked by Tottenham Hotspur. I'm going to read you very, very quickly, if I can, just some of the words we've had from some of the current first-team players that have spoken on Ange's future recently. Pedro Porro says, him continuing would be good for the dressing room. He has built a very good group and coaches that all need time. Thank you, everything, boss, for mentoring me early on, helping me settle into the football club, trusting me out on the pitch. I'll always be grateful for the way you led us, defended us, and kept us through all the highs and the lows. Above everything, you gave us one of the greatest moments in the club's history. And for that, you'll always be celebrated. Wishing you all the very best, boss. Lucas Bergvall was 100% unanimously suggesting Ange should remain the Tottenham Hotspur boss. Captain Heung-Min also spoke out and said, it's the manager who wins the trophy. Guillermo Vicario, another one of the membership or leadership group of this football club, also put his weight behind Ange Postecoglou and said, of course I want him to stay. He is my gaffer. In another touching moment I want to bring to you for those that aren't aware, whilst Ange was on a holiday in Greece, a Tottenham fan gave him a letter below and a bottle of wine to thank him for winning a trophy. Postecoglou sought out the fan and made sure to give him a signed shirt thanking him for this gift. With regards to when Ange kept certain players fit, the record was better. When we had that record, as we know, of Vicario, Udogie, Van der Ven, Romero, Porro stuck together, it was play 21, won 16, drew 2, lost 3. They only started 16 Premier League games together by the end of January. The point I want to ask you, Pat, is even like you say, you've been very, very clear about the results in the league not being good enough, the brand of football at times being far too open. Is there an argument, Pat, had he kept those group of players fitter for longer, we wouldn't be having this conversation and Ange would still be Tottenham Hotspur manager?
Yeah, 100%. Of course, there's that argument because the stats are the stats and we go off of the stats when they're bad. So we have to obviously also allude to them when they're good. You shouldn't just pick and choose and cherry pick. And I agree with Hartman when he said that. Stats and every argument here is correct. There's no incorrect stance. Everyone views things differently. Ultimately, we're all one club. We're all one fan base. We're all one team. And Ange, when he was good, was very good, as we all know. But it's a problem where over a course of a season, it's a long campaign, it will catch up to you. And ultimately, maybe in Scotland and other leagues, he had the strongest team, really good depth. You don't have that at Tottenham. So you've also got to navigate with what you've got. And I feel that's where the problem arose, where he wasn't flexible with it's the whole analogy, square pegs and round holes and all of that stuff. And I don't think he adapted well to what he had at his disposal, and that's obviously where he came.
It's always been the same, though, Pat, isn't it? That's all. And this is the thing about the club. 24 years of this club, it's always been the same. Anthony Costa, obviously we love him, friend of the show, a good friend of ours, says it.
Shout out to
Too short FC. Too short FC. We're always too short. The reality is, you could have had Pep Guardiola. Look, you can never say that I'm defending Ange or not, but this is the scenario. These are facts and stats that no one can argue with, right? When you take out your best back five, your 4 and your goalkeeper, Rick, you said it, 16 games. We played 60. We played 60 games, and they only played 16 together. You take that at any top team. You go back to when they was all playing, we're smashing Man City 4-0, rinsing Aston Villa, banging up Man United. We're up until when we put all our eggs in the basket, believe what you want or not. My information is that we did do that in January, as everyone else is, but I believe it. Go and have a look at the goal difference in the league. We're at plus 22. We're in the bottom 4, bottom 5. We still have plus 22 goal difference. That's how kamikaze the football might have been. But actually, when you talk about adapting or adaptation, it's virtually impossible to adapt when you've got a rookie midfielder playing as a centre-back for 30 games. Then you've got Ben Davis. Let me tell you something, right? I love Ben Davis. Great servant for the club. But Ricky will tell you 6 out of 10 Ben or 7 out of 10 Ben. Happy days, right? but he ain't good enough to play in the Premier League week in, week out. And then, bless Ben, he gets injured. And we have a rookie centre-back playing centre-back alongside Dragusin, who'd only just come in and not really found his feet. And then did we or did we not, even in some games, have Basuma play as a centre-back? I mean, seriously, team, seriously. And I'm not arguing. I'm just saying I want to put the point across passionately because it's not being taken into consideration. The first 10 games of the first season of Ange, right? He won 3 Premier League Manager of the Month awards on the trot. Unprecedented, yeah? I was saying, could we was having Happy Days music playing in the background. It's absolutely amazing. We were loving it. The wheels fall off at Chelsea and it gets stuck because he comes out in his brash way and says, it's who we are, mate. The tactical nous and a lack of adaptation on tactics sticks from that point forward. It's who we are, mate. That's what we're going to be. But if you go and have a look at some of them games subsequently, we have Maddison out, Romero out, Van der Ven out. I mean, again, there was 4 or 5 major injuries in that season, and we still ended up finished 5th because we sacked off the Carabao Cup against Fulham, and we didn't have any cup runs in Europe. We didn't have any cup runs in the FA Cup. Essentially, all we had to do was play 1 game a week, and we finished 5th. This year, it was the reverse of that, and you have to have context around it. I'm not trying to defend 22 defeats, and that sounds like I am. I'm not. What I'm saying is you have to have context around it. Let me ask all of you a question, right? Do we think if we had a fully fit, and I know you're always not going to have a fully fit 11, and lots of other teams, Brighton and Arsenal, and well, Arsenal sorry had a worse injury record than us, which clearly they didn't. But you know, all these other teams have injury records. But if we had our basis of our team fit for the majority of the season, would we have been better than 17th? Obviously, the answer is yes. Now we might have got 13th, we might have got 12th. We'll never know. Right, but the reality is you've got to say that we're going to be better than that. So part of that coaching team that you pulled up the graphic earlier, and part of that coaching stuff, and the medical team and Ange, they have to take responsibility for some of that. They do, and maybe there are too many rookies in the team. But what's ironic about all of this is we're saying, and there's comments in there now going, they're crap, the coaching staff are crap. Yeah, the ones holding the trophy. I mean, you couldn't make this stuff up. They've actually got a trophy in there that no one else, this amazing coaching team under Conte, they didn't do it. This amazing coaching team in Jose, they didn't do it. Amazing how Poch was and Jesus and all these, they didn't do it either. I mean, there is an irony to all of that, isn't there? Isn't there?
Well, I'm gonna go to Russ and Pat next because we've got a bit of a turnaround coming in terms of the show. So we're gonna have final thoughts of Russ and Pat, and we're gonna bring in Marlon and Jim in the back end, and we're gonna rotate accordingly. Pat, I want to ask you, I think the most important thing I want to get your opinion on next is Thomas Frank, because it does appear, from what we understand, Thomas Frank is the leading candidate for the role at this present moment in time. Of course, with Tottenham, that can always change. There are insinuations that there will be talks being held, if they haven't been held already, with Thomas Frank with a review to him being the man to take over from Ange Postecoglou. In your mind, is that the right decision for the football club, Pat?
No, not at all. And the thing is, it's been a difficult couple of hours because I see people in the comments saying that I'm rejoicing. I'm not happy because ultimately Ange failing and getting sacked means Tottenham have failed. It's a weird one because obviously I know we've won a trophy, but you know, he was sacked because he was deemed a failure. You know, and unfortunately, then, you know, we have to go through this whole rigmarole of replacing. And for me, Thomas Frank isn't the answer. I like him as a coach. I respect what he's done at Brentford, and he's done really well there. And he's developed some players into stars. He's a steady Eddie. You know, they play a decent brand of football, and he is quite adaptable. But I wouldn't want him to be the Spurs manager. I think two things can be right at the same time. I wanted us to get rid of Ange, but I also don't believe he's the right man to take us forward. I want an attacking manager who has a decent defensive principle and can improve players and obviously push us on, be adventurous, has some sort of European pedigree, and ideally can take us to where we want to be finishing, in the top 4 bracket of the league and winning trophies. And I don't think Thomas Frank has that in him.
Maybe who is that man, Pat? Who is that man for you?
A Xavi, dare I say it, a Pochettino. I know that the pool isn't great at the moment. I'm not going to lie to you, I really like Nagelsmann. Obviously, he's managing, the national team. Those are the kind of managers I'd be looking at. So yeah, I know the pool's not great. I'm probably missing a few people in the comments. Shout out other managers.
Glasner, people in the comments.
Glasner's a candidate I really like, but allegedly he's going to sign another contract with Crystal Palace, which makes sense after winning the FA Cup. He's a great manager that I'd really like. But yeah, there's not a great talent pool, but I don't think Thomas Frank is a manager that excites me.
Russ, let's get your take on it for you. In your heart of hearts, what do you make of Thomas Frank potentially replacing Ange Postecoglou?
I don't think he'd be the best manager for us, but I don't think he'd be the worst. He would recognise, because he's played us so many times, particularly obviously during Ange's tenure, that our squad is light. He would also know that if he was the manager, there'd be 4, 5, 6 who wouldn't be there, and he'd have to bring in some new players. I mean, for anyone coming into Spurs, if they bother to scroll through all of the managers we've had under this ownership, I've got to be honest with you, I think it'd put you off. But he may be made of strong stuff. And, Ange saw Tottenham as a really good fit for himself, and he ended up winning a trophy. If Thomas Frank is going to come in, what are the club going to demand of him for bringing him in and sacking the coach who won a trophy? They've got to give him a target. It concerns me that he has no Champions League / European experience. It is a different game, Rick, and everyone. But if he is the person who's coming in, I mean, I tend to agree with Pat on the attacking front, really. I mean, we've had to watch some dreadful football, really, for 18 months. 1 or 2 good games, but we want to, we wanted to dare and to do again. We want the game to be about glory. We've had a little bit with the Europa League, not in brilliant Tottenham style, but it doesn't matter. We won a trophy, and we're all delighted about it. We all celebrated, and we feel good about it. But someone like Xavi, an incredible player, he has the credentials that Pat and myself maybe are thinking about. But the Premier League is a graveyard for people who have the credentials, and it doesn't quite work out. It's a really tough decision, and it's the owners who have made the decision, and they own the big buck, or they earn the big bucks. I always say it. So they better do a good job, whoever they're going to bring in. But any manager with a brain and inquisitiveness will know already, or will have done their research on, okay, I know the way this lot operate, and I don't think it's very attractive at all. So Lee was saying at the beginning of the show, and I'm sure as the night goes on, he's going to elaborate on it, because he's obviously got some contacts and heard some things. Yep. And I'm going to be watching when I disappear, because I think it's really important. What are we going to be going forward? Who's going to be making the decisions? Is it still going to be Daniel Levy? I mean, looking from outside, I think we've all got to be suspicious with the lack of noise from him. Yep. A, whether he made the decision. B, who's actually running the show. Is he under pressure? Is he in the last days of his reign? Is it being negotiated that he's going to leave? Donna Cullen, his number 2, is, chief generalette. She's gone. And, there is something going on at Spurs. Maybe they're going to pull a rabbit out the hat. I really don't know. But to go back to your original thought, Thomas Frank, he's a good manager, but Tottenham is a much bigger club than Brentford. No offence, Brentford fans. And if he comes here, he's going to be under pressure. And true to form, if he doesn't deliver, he'll go the way of all of the others. And I think as a fan base, we're sick of that business model and football model.
Yeah. Russ, we can't do enough. Pat, you're going to be on. Russ, we are putting you back on a boat now. I'm going to see you hopefully in pre-season. Later in pre-season, but I say we're not bringing him back slowly in July. Otherwise, we will.
Thanks for having me.
Again. Russ,
keep the faith, everyone.
You've been a superstar. Pat, before you go, Pat, for you, we're going to see you a lot through the summer. Sorry, Pat, to tell you that. Who's going to be the man that replaces? Do you think it will be Thomas Frank? Is that your gut feeling?
Yeah, more than likely it's going to be Thomas Frank. 4 interviews, allegedly he smashed all the interviews. I think they like the fact that he's steady in the Premier League. He improves players. He's got a good foundation on the base. Obviously promoted with Brentford. Sorry, and
I've been saying it all week, Brentford. Don't worry about it.
Brentford. I always get confused, even though I shouldn't. And he's made them a solid and respectable Premier League team. Made stars out of Wissa and Bremo and Tony. Very good players as well, all around the pitch. He's a good manager, man. I can't knock him. And like you said, it could be when Poch was appointed, a lot of us were skeptical about Poch at Southampton and what he had done there. So you just never know. But he doesn't excite me. I can't lie to you. I'm almost gonna keep it 100. He doesn't excite me right now, but I can see why they would lean towards him. But I would like Tottenham to be ambitious now. I keep saying that we need to raise our standards as fans. The board also need to raise their standards as the people that run this club.
And just finally, Pat, this might be the last time you ever asked about Ange Postecoglou. Probably unlikely on this show, but very quickly, any final words for Ange as he departs the club?
You know what? Respect to Ange, man. A lot of people say I'm disrespectful to him. I'm not. It's just how I feel. But I do think that in terms of what he's done for the club, it's amazing. He is a legend and a hero to me and to everyone else. It does sound a bit contradictory, me saying that, but the truth is the truth. He's won us a trophy and he brought one of the best nights of my life and my footballing life. So respect him for that. Respect to him for bringing the players in unison together. I mean, what I saw on the high road that day was amazing. Ricky, you were part of that. Jason McGovern. Shout out to everyone else. TJ, Christina, and he's the guy that brought us that. So respect to him. I hope he does well in his career. I mean, he's already got such amazing, that what he's done at Tottenham is amazing. So well done to him. But I do think it was the right time.
Pat, Russ, you've been absolute stars. Russ, we're going to put you on that boat now and see you later in the summer. Pat, we might call you tomorrow. I'm only joking. Joking.
Please don't
Leave
call
me tomorrow.
Leave me alone.
Everyone's going to Ireland now.
Shout out to everyone watching. Shout out to everyone in the comments, man. Keep doing what you're doing, man.
Listen, over 10,000 watching us
live.
We're going to go for our next break. The wonderful broadcaster Russ Williams, the superb Patrick Tarrant. We're keeping Macca and Hartman on for a little while. In is coming the wonderful Jim from Oso Spurs and Monon from the Spurs Kings. Let's hear, if we can, in our next break from Ange Postecoglou, who was on that party bus less than 2 weeks ago, talking about what it meant for Tottenham to win that Europa League.
And I just want to say, firstly, what an unbelievably special day. How much have you enjoyed this? You said before it was about the people. They've turned out today.
Yeah, unbelievable. As much as you kind of understand, what a trophy would mean to these people, it's just seeing them out there today. It's just it's why we do what we do. That's the priceless bit. For this feeling, and I'm super pleased that these boys here could deliver, and this is why we delivered for the supporters.
I think this weekend is your 101st game, and you spoke about the Stonecutter's Creed.
Yeah.
You'll deliver it on 101, the trophy to their fans, but the first 100 were hard work, but you got there.
Yeah, but that's all good things come from hard work and toil and perseverance and belief, and this team's had it in spades, and so pleased that we could crack that stone and everyone can enjoy it.
I've seen fans online called the first half Ange Ball, the second half the Ange Wall.
Yeah, look, we had to dig deep for sure, but what the history books say is that we're the Europa Cup winners, and it doesn't say how we did it, just the important thing is we did it.
And just finally, I wanted to see how proud you were of the boys. You spoke about the togetherness, and Brennan told us the other day that halfway through the season, everyone shared their story with each other and how special that was to him. Just tell us a little bit about how special they are to you.
Yeah, I've made sort of family a theme from the time I got here, because I felt we needed something to bring us all together and sort of look further than just what everyone really wanted, and that is, I know, success, but we had to form some sort of unity, and the lads have been brilliant. They've shared their stories, they've got close through the tough times like all families, they've stuck together, and now they share the rewards.
Congratulations, I hope you've got an amazing holiday planned. Enjoy it.
Well, there you go. That was Ange Postecoglou, following, of course, Tottenham Hotspur, bringing home that European trophy on the parade bus. Joining us on this show, we're joined by, we had a bit of a change up in the lineup. Fresh faces in, we're adapting, we're showing some flexibility. We're joined by the wonderful Mon at the Spurs. Kings Mars has been a part of this show with me over the course of the last 18 months and has been here for a lot of the tough shows that, bless him, Lee McQueen has managed to miss, which has been good for Macca. But he's, like I say, we're lovely to have Macca back. And we're also joined by wonderful Jim from Also Spurs. Well, Jim, lovely to have you on board. Look, let's get the quick thoughts of the guys that have just appeared on here. And then we're going to come over to Lee to try and understand and decipher what does come next for Tottenham under Daniel Levy and ENIC. Marlon, let's come to you first. Lovely to have you on. I know I've driven you mad all season. What's the reaction now, given Ange Postecoglou has left his post as Tottenham Hotspur head coach?
Mixed. Very, very mixed. Look, I'm not going to sit here and deny that at one point I wobbled. I wanted him gone. But I've always said he had to have the cups. But then he gave me, I didn't believe he'd win it, but then he gave it to me. And the problem I've had in the last life, I've said to you, I'm dying on this cup. I was living off it. And Tottenham being Tottenham have made me come back to reality today of all days. So all I'm going to say is I'm not even entirely sure how I'm feeling. I'm looking at going, with my head, I'm going, it's the right decision. But my heart is going, I believe that he could have done something next year still. He told me that he was going to win a trophy in his second season. And he did. He literally just gave me the best time that I could have had as being a Spurs fan. The only thing that worries me now going forward was the statement.
Which one?
Spurs,
Andy's or the clubs?
Spurs, the clubs,
Okay.
fighting on all fronts. When have they ever given a manager under their tenure the time to fight on all fronts? And also the bit, just to let you know, we're never going to win cups again under this ownership, because the next managers all come in now are going to go, if I don't concentrate on the league, whatever cup I win, I'm going to get sacked. I'm getting the chop. That is it. That's it now. We're going to live off this Europa League until something changes majorly at this club, because that just says it all. We've sacked Ramos after a Carabao Cup win a few months later, and we've sacked Postecoglou after the Europa League win, which, by the way, is probably the third biggest trophy that's out there, and we won it. I don't care how we won it. So I'm not entirely sure how I feel, but I tell you now, it's going to be very interesting what the remit is for the new manager next season. And if we were to finish 8th, are Spurs fans going to be unhappy with that? Or are they going to be happy? That's the bit that I just need to clarify. And I heard the bit about if we'd have had our back five for those last set of games, we'd probably have gone back to the form that we had at the beginning of the season, where it was win, loss, win, loss, win, loss. So it would have been a 10th place finish, to give up the Europa League. So I'm a bit all over the place. I'm all over the place. However, I'm just going to sit here and say it's probably the right decision, but I'm not happy with it.
It's funny, isn't it? I mean, even like watching the show live, the amount, and I would say for listeners on audio, I don't think I've ever seen just a split in a lot of the comments. I will just to say this before I bring Jim in, because Jim has been vehemently, I think, fair to say, behind Ange through a lot of his time at the football club. I think if you go off recent polls that have been done in amongst the Spurs community, I think it is fair to say that a lot of them have swung in favour of giving Ange Postecoglou that third season. You're always maybe going to think, what if now? What if had we given him the third season, what would happen? And I just wonder, Jim, coming over to you on that point, because you were here only a night or so ago and we discussed this, about the fact that it was always going to be hard now to go maybe back to Ange after they have been conducting conversations with other managers. Where do you land for you, Jim, on the news they have parted company with Ange, and as we look to move on to maybe what comes next for the club?
Yeah, it's a poignant moment for me. It's one that I hope we don't all look back on and go, that was one of those moments where we made the wrong decision. And look, I think to be fair to Spurs, and this is coming from someone who's been staunchly sticking to their view that if we stuck with this person and went through all this pain, I trusted them. I trusted their history, having read into them more than I have for other managers, admittedly. I've read both their biographies, sat down with numerous people. And what brought us in with Ange from day one from my side was when we were linked with De Zerbi, Ange, and all these other guys. As soon as I spoke to someone who worked for Ange, they were like, the thing that he has that Spurs haven't had in any of their recent managers was an ability to move groups of people behind him in a belief system that they can win things. And that's what he brings to clubs. It's not all about the tactics. It's not all about, he's not perfect. He's got lots of flaws. And if you read the books, people like Vince Rigari will say his kryptonite is he gets prickly in the media when his integrity is questioned. He's got buttons that can be pushed and he's not perfect. He's not the messiah of everything. But what he will do if he goes for Spurs, and this person wasn't a big fan of Spurs, and they said, I don't want him to go to Spurs this reason. He will teach, he will give you that moment where he shows you can do it. And the whole club will suddenly go, we can win things. Like he'll get rid of the Spursy tag. And he'll do it in an extreme way that just divides the fan base because he does it everywhere he goes. And I think we've been through that. But there will be this time where you'll think that was the limit and he'll take you to the next limit. And you're like, oh my gosh. And I guess for me, he took us all to the limit. And then he promised us the next bit was going to be even better. And there's no guarantee he would have got there. There's obviously a world in which we get 10 games into next season and we go, oopsie. We should have moved on. That was a great moment to break ties and end on a high. But I feel he's left me. It's a bit like this awful analogy to use, which would be like, it's a bit like meeting some stranger and them just being like, is that show with Leonardo DiCaprio and he goes to that beautiful island? It's called The Island, right?
Shutter Island. Maybe Shutter Island.
One where he goes and finds, he's a young kid and he finds this beautiful island in the middle of nowhere. No one believes him that exists. But anyway, he meets some like drunk Scottish guy in a hostel. He's like, trust me. I've got this map. Come with me. And there's this beautiful island. No one's ever heard of it before. It's the best place in the world. And no one believes this guy. And he goes, you know what? I will. And they go, the beach. That's it. The beach. And he goes through this bizarre journey and he starts to question himself in the way, but he gets there and it exists. And you're like, oh my gosh, it just exists. And it feels like we got to the first field and it was like, okay, it does exist. And he's like, yeah, but over there, come with me one more time. I'm going to show you the bay. And you're like, oh, I don't believe you actually. I've got to get back. This is just crazy. I'm going home. And we don't know if over the edge was just a cliff edge and we were all just going to splatter. But I was brought in to what might be over that hill. And I think it feels a long time, a season of football, because a season of football is 50 odd games. And we felt it right as fans to endure that league season of 38 say 30 of those 38 were pretty poor performances, let's face it. That hurt a lot. And I think we underestimated how much that would hurt. But I feel like I've gone through all that pain, and for the sake of 3 or 4 months potential pain, we could have just seen if it was true, if season 3 existed, and we'll never know. And we will never know. But having said that, I believe that all these coaches we're linked with, they're not stupid individuals. These are super driven people who have worked their butts off to get where they are. They're qualified out their ears and they've got different strengths and weaknesses. If you underpin them with a great recruitment team over a consistent period of time, they'll do well. And I'm just going to have to say, like, thanks to the guy who gave me the best moments I've been a season ticket holder for 15 years, and that was the best moment I've ever had supporting Spurs in amongst the hardest season I've ever had to sit through. Best moment, worst season, all in one. Thank you for that moment. I cannot say anyone who disagrees and says, sorry, this is the right moment, you've got to cut ties, there's too many red flags to fix. That's completely fair. The reason it was such a debatable decision is because both sides have completely valid arguments. And if you believe you should have moved on for Ange, I think you are equally right to say it's the right time to move on. And let's just say, let's get the recruitment right. We're not going to have loads of money, unfortunately, this summer. Looking at the cash flow, unless we get equity, when you take off our transfer payables, we've got about £30 million left, but we've got a £50 million, I forget what you call it, but anyway, we've got £50 million from HSBC we can draw down on as a loan effectively to help juice that up to 80 million. Appreciate most transfers are done on deferred payments anyway, but that's not enormous compared to what we had. But we've got enough to bring in 2 or 3 senior players. Let's get those signings right. And let's give this new person a chance and give them the couple of years they deserve to show they can do it. And let's not all jump down their throat after 6 months if they're struggling. Because I gave Ange that patience. And I think we'll give the new person that patience.
Well, I mean, also at this point, I'm going to come over to Lee and try and understand what is happening in the boardroom, and then we'll go to Dow on this point as well. Now, just to bring everybody up to date is what we do understand the latest on the managerial hunt, which for now we understand Tottenham are expected to make a decision on the new head coach next week following Ange's departure. Brentford boss Thomas Frank is a leading contender to succeed the Australian, and we understand talks are going to start soon. Despite a lot of speculation, those talks have already taken place. We understand the club do also appreciate Marco Silva, and they were also reportedly interested in Simone Inzaghi before he signed with Al Hilal, and then it was impossible to compare financial proposals. Also, reportedly, we have to use that word, reportedly among the candidates to be also in the frame is former Spurs boss Maurizio Pochettino, and as previously linked to the club, Andone Iriola, and of course, Oliver Glasner. And I think just to say on Poch for a second, it would take a compensation package that sources describe as one of the biggest in football history to have a chance to pry Maurizio Pochettino away from the USA. Right. Lee, we're going to go to you because you teased it at the start of the show that there's a lot happening in the boardroom. Russ touched upon it a little bit earlier. Do you want to give us a little bit of an understanding on what you maybe can tell us in regards to what is happening upstairs? Because as you know, a lot of reports with regards to maybe Daniel Levy's position may be subject to change. We know that, just to be also clear and up front, Scott Munn is expected, if he hasn't been already, to be released from his duties. And you've also got Peter Charrington also involved somewhere as a non-exec as things stand with regards to the club. So do you just want to share, Lee, what you can tell us from your perspective, if you can?
What I'm about to say to you, you can take with a pinch of salt. I don't pretend to be in the know. I'm not an in the know. What I do know is that Thomas Frank will be the next Tottenham Hotspur manager. He's already had 4 interviews with the club, so he's not commencing talks. The talks have happened, and it wouldn't surprise me if come midnight he's already. What was that time we sacked Poch, and then we woke up and Mourinho was the new manager. That wouldn't surprise me at all. But when people are talking about all these other managers, we haven't spoken to Inzaghi. We actually did speak to Alonso back in December, but Alonso made it very, very clear he only really wanted Real Madrid. So that was never a goer. And you know, on the manager front, them 4 interviews happened before the cup final. Okay, so that's, you know, like I say, I'm not going to tell you how I know this information, so don't bother asking, but it's absolute rock solid and concrete. I also know that Donna Cullen was stood down. She didn't stand down. She was actually stood down. I knew that information on May the 10th. And I know this other information from the day after the cup final. Okay, so just so that you know. And there's a lot of different rumours that are out there as well about certain things, and certain things are, you know, rumours and getting, you know, I'm not a journalist, right? So I don't care. I don't do this for likes and shares. I'm not worried. But you're one of my best friends, Rick, and I've been doing this show for 7 years. So why wouldn't I share with my Spurs community what I know? The next person to fall will be Scott Munn in a massive change around the board. And for those of you that are thinking, oh, Qataris, you know, they're coming in. It's not what I'm hearing. Not what I'm hearing at all. So I'll put that one to bed from my perspective. It's not a rumor. I'm not hearing that at all. But what I am hearing is that Daniel Levy is going to be stepped down. That is what I'm hearing. So Daniel Levy, the time is coming. So what you've got to understand is that my understanding is that Ange being sacked is not actually a Daniel Levy decision. It'll be a board decision anyway, but it won't actually be a Daniel Levy decision. You mentioned Peter Charrington earlier, Rick, that we talked about. Peter Charrington is ex-City Private Bank. He came into the football club in March as a non-exec director, as a NED. My understanding is that he's going to step up as chairman or interim chairman. Vinay has obviously come into the football club. I think we've already seen some of the benefit of his experience around the players and around the fan groups and around kind of bringing the club together. He obviously got he could start his role, I think it was this week. So ultimately from that perspective, you're going to start seeing Vinay coming in, Peter's influence coming in. There's still a question mark in my understanding around Paratici, but my understanding is that he is coming back as well. Although him and Daniel Levy did have a strong relationship. Also, there's been huge rumours, actually. I don't know where it came from, to be fair, on social media, but it's quite weird that it came out. But the hotel projects are being scrapped. That is what I'm hearing. So there's a £250 million hotel project. Don't be surprised. Well, I say don't be surprised. I'm hearing concretely that's going to be scrapped. And what that means is that the funds not being diverted away from the core footballing asset. This isn't a footballing decision. What I'm talking about, this is a boardroom decision. Okay, this is a £3.5 billion organisation that is having a huge shake-up in the board. And when you talk about change for Tottenham and all the great work that they've been doing, and everyone that we've been talking to on the show, and lots of people in the comments, and lots of people that are watching right now, this is the moment that we've been waiting for. This is the moment that we've been asking for. So when you take it out of the Ange part of things, that's why I'm not too, like, I'm gutted for Ange. I've said that at the beginning of the show, but I'm not too despondent, because I actually think the changes that are happening in this football club board level are exactly what we need. And so when you talk about where's the club going, I wrote, not a piece, but I wrote something on Twitter a few years ago, actually, into the same situation where we sacked yet another manager. This was about, I don't even remember it was. It could have been Stellini, could have been Conte, could have been Mourinho. Who knows? We've sacked so many, right? Could have been Nuno. But we talked about not knowing where the club's going. And I put a piece out about kind of where we need to be, who we are. Hartman, you was talking about earlier, who are we as a football club? And I think, what we've been talking about here, or my understanding, right, is just, you can shoot the messenger if you want. 24 hours, 48 hours is a long time in football, right? Things change. And this is Tottenham Hotspur. Let me caveat all of this by saying things can change. But the reality is that this, for me, is seen as a really, really positive thing for this football club, even though it's coming off the back of a tough decision with Ange Postecoglou having just won that trophy. But my understanding is that it's not a Daniel Levy decision. So fair play, right? I think Daniel Levy could have sacked Ange at any time during the last 8 months, 9 months, like to Jim's point earlier. Right? He could have been sacked at any particular time, and he didn't do that. And now he's being sacked when all of a sudden Donna Cullen has supposedly stepped down, although I know she's been stood down, and Mun's going to go, and Vinay is coming in, and all of a sudden these changes are happening at board level. Quite substantial changes are happening at board, which is the first time we've ever seen this, Rick. So I did say before the show, didn't I? I didn't want to waffle on, and you've tipped, but that's my understanding, and the news is from what I know is not a Qatari takeover or big. That might be investment led, but the big understanding for me is that Daniel Levy won't be the chairman of Tottenham Hotspur Football Club. Certainly, come the start of the season, and certainly probably before the summer starts in earnest.
Well, I think what's really interesting about that point is, just to come over to you, Dow, on that, is because I know there's been a lot. I saw Ali Gold actually say this on X, that there's a Daniel Levy quote for both Ryan Mason, Donna Cullen, but nothing on the statement for, as Ali in his own words said it, for a man that's won the biggest trophy of his tenureship. And, does that maybe point to what Lee's saying there, that ultimately Daniel Levy maybe hasn't been highly influential in the decision, if not at all, for Ange Postecoglou to leave this football club now?
Yeah, there smells of something. Where there's smoke, there is always a fire. So there is a lot of what Lee's saying could possibly play out. I think My concern, as I've voiced earlier, is who is Tottenham and what is the identity of this club and what do we want going forward? And I know people spoke earlier, I think Pat brought it up, I think Russ mentioned it as well, about Tottenham being a big club. And if I'm not mistaken, I think, Martin, I think you spoke about it on one of the pods a couple of days ago, and I kind of echo that of going, I think there's a bite of reality that we have to take with being Spurs fans and what is a big club and where are we? And I think if we are getting what we've been campaigning for, when we want that change at Tottenham, if it is happening, if all of this is change, we then need a clear vision. And we all need to be buying into what this clear vision is. And I'm worried because of what I heard in that statement about competing on all fronts and about the ideology of what Tottenham's new manager needs to do. Yes, Lee.
Oh, sorry, mate. Can I just come in on that now? Because I agree with you under the old regime, but I can't agree with that under the new regime, because the new regime are writing that statement. That statement isn't coming; it's a club statement, and the new regime are making the decisions, or the board changes and making the decisions rather than. So for Donna Cullen and Daniel Levy wrote that statement, I'm with you 100%, bro. I'm like, what? This is bullshit. Like, this is ghost. You're never going to put the money in. Blah, 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 blah. But under the new regime, where they want to put football first, when they're scrapping some of these hotel projects, when they're bringing in football first mentality after we've just won something, that actually is quite exciting, right? Because that's exactly what we all want, right? Whether or not it happens, well, I don't know. Do you know what I mean? So,
and Lee, that is exactly where I then go. Is if you're giving that statement, I then need the evidence now. You have to back that up. It can't be lip service. We can't win a trophy, say we want to compete on all fronts, and then handcuff ourselves in the transfer window and not give us what we need and not get the right manager in. We have a squad that is young, and there's winners now in there, and there's a confidence in there that needs to be nurtured. And this next appointment is key. And I'm worried because there's not a real plethora of great managers available. And when you're shaking up the system, you've got to have someone in that coaching role, in that managerial role, who goes, I've got this. Trust me. I know what you want. I can deliver. And as Jim said, we're then as a fan base have got to give that time. We can't do the usual Spurs 2-year rebuild again and again. So if it's all new, it's going to be brand spanking new. And we've got to all go on it, and we've got to go on this journey and this ride and pray and hope that they back their chat. Because as you said, Lee, that's a big statement to say you want to compete on all fronts. That's new lines. If you want that, you've got to give us a squad that can do that, a manager that can do that. And all fronts mean that squad is deep enough to compete in the league and in the cup. As Marlon said, if it's not, we'll never win a cup again, because we'll have to focus on managers going, I've got to be somewhere in the league financially and where it is respectable, or I'm fired. And as fans, we go, so as I know Jason's going mad when he listens to it, because it becomes that notion of being fourth is a cup, being fifth is a cup. We're going to do parades for just finishing in the league. That's not, we just got given something that we haven't had for years. We got given a moment to make us feel like winners, feel successful, feel like we were climbing up a ladder. And let's not now chop that ladder in half and start climbing the same ladder again. We now have to build above ourselves, and it's a great opportunity to do that. And I wish I could look at our club and go, we're going to do it. I'm going to use Man United as an example. They've got a manager that has failed. But soon as the transfer window opens, they throw money to support and build, whether it's right or wrong, but they back their chat. They show action. We do words and no action. I'm done with words. I need action.
Can I just come back on that just quickly? I know we have got other guests, right? And I will zip it, but this was the kind of main part of the show that you brought me on for. When you look at Peter Townsend coming in as when Daniel Levy does steps down from a position of chairman, he's still going to be in and around the club, but maybe it might come out as a statement. He's moving away from footballing duties and all that sort of stuff, right? That's what the club may come out and say. But the reality is, when you've got a new chairman coming in, or an interim chairman coming in, sitting above a CEO that is also new, then you've got underneath that CEO, you've got a new structure coming in at board. This is what I'm talking about. This is not football. decision. This is a board decision of a £3.5 billion organisation, and you've got a whole new structure coming into the organisation, and they want to focus on what their core product is, which is football. I mean, that's music to everybody's ears, isn't it?
Can I bring Jim in on this point, Jim? Because I know you're doing a lot at the moment with regards to Also Spurs about the financial situation at the club. If what Lee says there does come to fruition, does that give you hope and optimism for the future? Because I know a lot of people right now are concerned. And I think even with regards to, we touch upon Daniel Levy just for a second, you know, I think rightly so, there's a lot out there that are maybe frustrated and angry by Daniel sacking a cup-winning manager. You know, as we know, Pochettino got sacked for wanting a painful rebuild. Mourinho got sacked before a cup final. Conte got sacked for what many suggest was speaking the truth about the ownership. Postecoglou got sacked after winning a European trophy and ending our trophy drought. You know, there is this kind of feeling that maybe does Daniel Levy hate winning? I mean, what's your gauge on that for you, Jim?
I think Daniel Levy's strategy as chairman has always been to look at a plan that's beyond the immediate now. And I don't believe he doesn't want to win things, because the benefit of winning trophies, etc., brings the additional revenues. It brings the additional brand appeal and everything else that comes that would aid his asset management projects on the side, which he says, and you know, we've seen evidence that these investments into assets have resulted in the ability to spend more money and all those kind of things. But I think where it's often been frustrating for us as fans is it's always about kind of the season after next. You know, I'm building for this season after next, and then the one after that one. Whereas you see a bit more impetus from other clubs we're competing with to say, right, that is important, but the season coming is even more important. And some clubs have gone way too far. I think an Aston Villa, as an example, is not what you want to do. Or an Everton, where they previously banked, they went, right, let's go all in, and then we'll get Champions League, and that additional European revenue will, you know, that's what we're kind of spending towards. We're banking on getting something we don't have. And then you don't reach that target. And the implication is a decade of trying to get back to some kind of mid-table security. We don't want to do that. But I feel we could go somewhere in the middle. I don't think we have to go and stretch our finances to such an extent where you're really struggling. But I do feel there could be a bit more immediate focus on, you know, how can Spurs be competitive tomorrow, and what can we do to stretch these things? Now, we've found ourselves in a financial situation, though, where because of 5 years-ish, a bit more than that, 5 to 8 years of pretty poor hits on the recruitment front, so no hits really, we pretty much from Poch, the last couple of years of Poch onwards was pretty terrible up until we brought in a new recruitment structure. That's left us with a huge squad problem where you only have 17 spots in the Premier League and 18 spots in Europe that are for non-homegrown players that you can effectively buy in at any reasonable price. So the other 7 spots, you need to really plan ahead to fill, because they need to be club grown, they need to be homegrown, they need to be playing for an FA registered club for 3 years before a certain age, or your club before a certain age. You can't just buy that, you know, unless you pay way over odds. Spurs didn't plan accordingly, and now they're in a space where we've got 18 of those 17 spots filled already, even after all the players we've offloaded. So we can't just buy our way out of trouble even if we had the cash now. We've got to plan how we're going to fix the other 7 spots to have a big enough squad to compete. And that's what I think Liverpool, even though they have a bigger brand, it's easier for them to attract players. It's easier for them to attract more managers, better managers than us. They do have the perfect balance. Their squad always has. They invest heavily in youth. And by that, I mean, you know, like Trent Alexander-Arnold, I believe he started at QPR, right? Like, they're not Liverpool-raised lads, but they do a very good job of, I'm going to invest heavily into getting really young, exciting prospects into our academy at a very young age and bringing them through and nurturing them. And then they get the balance of buying young, but they get the balance of also sprinkling in a couple of senior players every single season to keep that first team fresh, knowing when to sell a senior player and knowing when to keep a senior player and getting the balance just right. We don't seem to get that balance right. And I think there's examples of where we've got it wrong in the past, plenty of times. But yeah, we need, I think, ultimately a change in that leadership structure to really accelerate how we're going to get investment into the club. And I think Lee said what's saying there, if that ends up being correctly, that is exciting, because the club can still do things to make us more powerful now. They could take more risks and seek in more investment from the club, be that in larger forms of credit, be that in being less picky about the demands in exchange for a minority stake sale, being a bit more ambitious about what they promise back to people who invest into the club, in order to achieve short-term success. That will in turn lead to easier long-term success. And I think we need to move to that model. You can't always keep building for the future. And I do see why you're going to build a big hotel block and get even more revenue and more headroom. But I don't want to be 99 years old and say Tottenham have 10 billion in revenue now. Right, the time has come. It's all paid off. All these hotels, the theme park, everything else, we've done it. Great, that all made sense. But I want us to pull the trigger and enjoy the game a bit now and find that right balance and have some fun now. Whilst I don't want to always be too sensible. It's a balance in life, isn't it? Sometimes you've got to go out and be a bit silly. 100%. Sometimes it is fine to go and buy your convertible. You know, it doesn't always have to go all in the savings.
There is to do.
There is to do, yeah. You've got to get a balance.
Absolutely. Miles, I'm going to come to you, then we're going to go for the final break of the show, which has been fascinating. I've got to say, there's over 12,500 that are watching the show live. Thank again, as always, for all the incredible support for Last Word On Spurs. Miles, look, I've touched upon Daniel Levy there. Look, we've won one trophy in 17 years, one European trophy since 1984. You know, I know Lee's told us a lot of information there, but when it's Daniel Levy that comes out and says, a review of performance and significant reflection, when does Daniel Levy become that point? And maybe like Leah said there, maybe that is already taking place and is actually already happening behind the scenes. But we're going to be honest about the situation we're in right now. You know, 2 weeks to sack a manager, another week maybe to appoint one. We've got another week to ramp up the recruitment. Some may feel we're already a month behind everybody else. And, you know, currently we are now beginning our our search for our 5th permanent managerial appointment since 2019. And the next manager Tottenham appoint will be the 14th manager in 24 years. Does this go back to maybe what Lee is suggesting and saying, that how can any club be successful with this frequency of recruitment and turnaround in such a high-profile role as the manager of a football club? And I think you have to go back. I think the only manager in recent times under ENIC that have had an extension has been Maurizio Pochettino. Nobody else in recent times under ENIC has had their contract extended by the football club. Is that maybe the reason, Miles, that we are seeing drastic change? What do you want to say?
Can I just say, Marlon, before you come on, can I just say, and after that contract extension, he was sacked 6 months later. I mean, you could not literally make it up. And he was being paid off. Hang on. He was being paid off, Poch, for 4.5 years, which covered the rest of the managers that we hired. I mean, can you actually believe that? That's a true story, man. Check it out. I'm moving it, Marlon.
Look, if Lee's saying what is correct, you must have seen the biggest smile on my face come on when he said Levy's going to be stepping down. Now, if that's true, everything I just said at the beginning of the show, and sorry, you're dead to me. I know, is it too soon? But he's dead to me. Because the fact that Levy will have nothing to do with what's going forward, I can get on board with this. And that's me. Look, like you said, there's been how many managers, how many this, how many that. And if push comes to shove, and we're seeing a massive change at this football club, then I'm going to be on board with it. I'm sorry, I am. I'm going to flip-flop, and I'm going to be exactly going, I can see the light. I can finally see the light after all these years that actually maybe Tottenham are starting to think footballing reasons. Whether the next manager is Frank or not, and whether we're going to be underwhelmed on it by not, I'm not here for that. I just want to see the changes on the pitch. And as Jim said there, he doesn't want to remember a hotel. I'm going to remember this Europa League. My kids are going to remember this Europa League because everyone on this panel is going to remember the Europa League and what you did and what it meant that night. And I think everyone remembered family, Spurs, and everything. So for me, I'm just looking at going, it all depends on what we see over the next month, determines on how I start seeing this club going forward. because I'm either going to be in Dell's situation where I'm going, no, same old, ain't going to change. It's going to be completely the same. Or if Lee is saying what he's saying is correct, and everything is changed. And as we've seen, with Donna going, if Lounge is going, and if Levy is going to be,
I'm getting excited.
Look, until it's confirmed, Lee, I really want to believe it. Like, you don't know how badly, but until that moment, I'm going to sit there and go, all right, let's see what happens, because it's exactly what we've been fighting for all these years, and this is the issue now. Like, everyone thinks we're a month behind, and I think I said this on Monday. This window is going to be up until September, whatever it is. We've still got time to build. We've still got time, whoever the new manager is, to go get him the players he wants. Don't worry yet. Like, everyone's all worried about this, that, and the other. You've got 2 clubs taking part in the Club World Cup, hence the reason why certain things are moving early. And Liverpool have just become champions, and they're kind of going, we need to get our replacements in now, because you've got to remember that was a team that didn't sign anybody. But once Liverpool are done, do you think there'll be many more signings after that? Everyone else, the rest of the Premier League, it's not like everyone else in the Premier League is signing people. And I looked at the Brentford signing the other day when they signed Keller, and there was nothing from Frank. So that's where I do believe, Lee, that Frank is going to be the next manager. But I'm looking at it, and I think I said this the other day, I'm looking at him as a Poch situation where he might come in and change the fortunes. And actually, if he goes and talks to the players that apparently rumoured at the moment they want to leave because Ange has been sacked, he might bring them all on board, and that winning mentality might stay within this club. And if they see the changes at the top happening as well, that might bring another winning mentality. I just think right now, as Spurs fans, we've got our trophy. Let's see what this summer brings. And let's see, because like I said earlier, it all depends on what the remit is. And if they are going to back the team with the squad to compete on all fronts, I'm here for it. I am here. But at the moment, I'm looking at it going, it took, like you said, it took how many weeks to sack him? It's taken so many weeks to do this, so many weeks to do that. But this is Tottenham Hotspur. Do we expect any different?
I agree. Jim, we're going to let you go. It's been a pleasure actually having you on the show for this last 45 minutes. Jim, finally for you, very quickly, if it is Frank in next, what would your message be to the Spurs fans as they gear themselves up for yet another managerial change?
Look, we've got a fantastic young core that's been rebuilt. I think we overestimated the quality of our squad when we sold Harry Kane. We thought, it wasn't going to hurt as much as it did. And a lot of those gaps in our squad have been largely exposed. So, look, we know whoever the next manager is, they've got a squad that's incomplete, but it's a great foundation and loads of young talent brimming through it. Let's just make sure, even if your personal views like mine are, we should have stuck with Ange, that we treat the next person with the same dignity and respect we'd have wanted Ange to get. And we don't dive down their throats with a told you so if it goes wrong, but instead we finally create a bit of a unison behind everyone in that stadium really supporting whoever it is. And look, they're all great coaches we're linked with. I know people have different opinions as to whether winning trophies at other clubs is a signal for the right manager, or succeeding in terms of building a solid team under a low budget is a sign for a good manager or not. You can't really compare coaches of different clubs in that way. I feel that they will have such different squads, such different expectations, such different targets. All these things are so variable. It's not as easy as that manager did well over there, they're going to do well with us. But what we can guarantee is those names we're linked with, they're individuals who have succeeded in life because they've become in the top percentile of their industry through fight, determination, and adaptability. Let's believe in them. Good recruitment will underpin success for anyone, and a good atmosphere will help them on the way.
Jim, you're a superstar. Love having you on here. We're going to go for our final break of this show, and as we do come back, we're going to close on what it looks like for Tottenham Hotspur's future in this final 10. Let's hear one last time from Ange Postecoglou after that Europa League final.
The first Australian man to win a European final, the first Greek man to win a European final. What does that mean to you as someone that takes so much pride in his identity?
I don't know. I'll think about all those things. I know what it means to the club, and that's what I love these moments. I've had a few of them in my career because I just look around and see what it does to people, and that's the most special thing for me.
lots of people have spoken and asked you about your dad and what it would have meant for him to see this. I wondered now, seeing your boys run onto the pitch, how much that means to you to see them have that moment with you tonight.
Yeah, it's everything. Family's everything. And my dad, my mum, I'm sure is watching in Greece somewhere with my sister and my nephews. And great to have my wife, my 3 boys here. You know, they're everything to me, and they're my biggest supporters. And again, tonight's about giving back to them.
Ange, thanks for tonight. Congratulations.
And there you go. That was Ange Postecoglou after that Europa League final. And we've seen a number of messages being left by current first team players that have expressed their love for Ange and sadness to see him go. And there's one from Maka, who was very much, if you remember back at the time of calling Ange Postecoglou, there he was incoming, 7th of April. And Ange joined on the 6th of June. I dug it out. Look,
2 months in advance of the fella being appointed, and I called it out on the cesspit that is Twitter. Thanks for everybody tuning in right now from said cesspit. But that's the reality. Like, I'm not saying I'm in the know. I don't care about tier 1, although you can put me down as one now. At the end of the day, I'm just sharing with my friends, with my Spurs community, the stuff that I've been told. You know, to give you some timescales, I was told about board changes on May the 10th, and then I was told specifics after the 22nd of May, specifics. So now it's the 6th of June. So it's 2 weeks. So, the Daniel Levy piece, for those of you, look, I know it is massive news. It is, I get it. And until it happens, even I'm probably not thinking it's going to happen because it is so big, but it's going to happen. So, stay strapped in, team, because I'm the crazy train driver, and I'm telling you now, this football club is utterly crazy. One thing I will say, just to elaborate on what we were talking about earlier, is that this will be seen as a good thing. This, most people, not all people, but most people have been campaigning for Donna Cullen to be gone, to be campaigning for Daniel Levy to step down or step away from the footballing side, or however you want to communicate it. Whatever comes out from the club, I'm sure it won't be Daniel Levy's been sacked or Donna Cullen's been. Well, we know that didn't come out. It was she stepped down. We also know that wasn't the case. So it doesn't actually matter how it comes out or what happens. What actually matters is what's happening going forward. Going forward, Rick, if this is, I say if or when this happens, it has to be seen as a really positive move for the football club. I mean, look, you got Thomas Frank's picture on there for the people listening back in the morning, on their way to football, wherever they're going to take their kids out and whatever it is on a Saturday, even commuting to work. Thomas Frank's on the screen. I'll be honest with you, he doesn't do it for me. Like he's not doing it, but I'm not paid millions and millions of pounds. I don't put billions of pounds into football clubs, and I don't make them decisions. If it was me, I wouldn't be going for a Thomas Frank. However, that's what this regime, this new board essentially has voted for, and that's what they're going after. It is my understanding. So, I'm not a journalist. I'm not better than any other journalist out there. I just knew it all before them.
Can I come on to the point about Thomas Frank? I mean, because that's obviously where it does feel Tottenham are going to go next. If Tottenham do go there next, Dale, what's your gut feeling for you on that? I think you touched on this earlier for you that probably Ange was deserving of that 3rd season. That is now not going to happen. But for what Frank has done throughout his career and progression in general and what he's done at Brentford, I think Brentford really, apart from a couple of seasons ago, where they did finish, I think, themselves 16th, 17th, they've never really been in fear of relegation since Brentford have been in the Premier League. So you could argue Frank has been deserving of a step up. Just, is it right that step up is at a club of Tottenham size and magnitude? What do you think for that, Dal?
I think, of course, it's going to be the biggest challenge of his career so far if he comes over to Tottenham. And it's a challenge that I just hope he's ready for. Because part of the challenge you face when you take on a side like Tottenham is our fan base, as we've seen tonight, we are divided. There are going to be some that are going to be very happy to get top 4, and that's going to be seen as success for him under the kind of Pochettino era of that's what a successful Spurs side is, financially and competing is what they want. They're going to be another set of fans who have now won something and going to want to win again, and that's going to be part of the fuel. And I think that's why with Lee's information, and I've kind of kept the same tone from the start of today, going, my concern and fear and worry is going to be the direction we go in. And it has to be a collective direction. It has to be all of us on the same hymn sheet, because Frank will fail like any manager will fail coming in if we're not all on the same hymn sheet.
Yeah.
If we're expecting big signings and he doesn't get the budget, if we expect to turn this squad into a competing squad with Man City who are spending and everyone else who's spending, if he's expected to compete, we're setting ourselves up for a fall. And I think that's where this new regime, fingers crossed this happens, comes with a clear objective and steers it in the way. Yes, Lee?
Do you think that, if, as an example, we don't change and the regime and my information is wrong and it stays as it is and, we don't invest and blah, 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 all that stuff. Do you think that, Ange would have been a better man to stay in charge because he can get more out of the players on the basis that he's built that momentum and taught them to win and got rid of that the monkey off his back and all that stuff that Russ and everyone talked about earlier, rather than bringing somebody else in? So again, for me, that doesn't make sense, because one of the key things, and sorry to interrupt, but just to make it an interactive debate, one of the things for me has to change is the 42% wage revenue ratio. That has to change. It has to change now, and I think that is one of the biggest issues in the club when we're talking about Mbeumo's, when we're talking about Cunha's, when we're talking about, we've always been led to believe from the media, from all rival fans, all this banter, war a trophy, you ain't got nothing, wait till you win a trophy and things will change. Well, no, the only thing that really changes is when you put coin down. That's the only reason when it changes. When you got dollar on the counter, that's when people listen and that's when change. And I'll give you an example, right? Are you seriously telling me that Cunha wanted to go to Man United versus Tottenham if they were paying better wages or the same wages, like under that scenario? Now, Man United are one of the top clubs in the world even today, but they're in an absolute mess, going from Gary Neville, who's an absolute legend in the football club, right? That stability piece. If you're paying somebody, a player, 70 grand a week and saying, come to the Tottenham project versus come to the Man United top three club in the world and we're going to pay you 300 grand a week. Honestly, where are you going? This is the whole situation with Al Hilal and the Saudi Arabian market. And, people like, do you know what I mean? Like, people like, Bruno Fernandes and all that sort of stuff staying. That, fair play. But money talks. And most of the time, money talks. And that for me is the biggest issue. Is I'm not saying go and do a Villa like Jim just talked about. That model's going to crash and burn at some point. But you've got to take your wage ratio up from 42% to 60, 65 and start getting some of these players on decent money. And they will come through the door quicker or more efficiently through the door, because that's been the issue, is recruitment. Sorry to.
I'll come back on that, and then we'll go to Marlon. Come back on that if you wish, Del.
I totally agree with you, Lee. I think it's a marriage of the two, because if you had kept Ange, you've got a better buy-in because you've got a manager who just won saying, "Come to my project." That we all lit up when he said, Season 3 is better than Season 2. He sold us a dream, and he could sell that to a new signing. And then you can haggle with wages because you go, look, I may not have the money, but I've got the dream. And you saw what I did with him. Now I can give you this. As Jim said, he makes you believe. Now we've got a whole new setup where if the board changes, if the gaffer changes as it is, you then go, how do I buy in? And you're absolutely right. Anyone who knows their worth is going to want to be paid their worth. And Spurs are not doing that. So I saw someone put up about getting people like, I know Christina, I know you want him, I know you want Grealish. We're never going to pay him that money. It's that transfer under the structure we have doesn't happen, because players like that, they know their worth and they want a certain amount of money. And I think that's where some of the players that we're talking about, it frustrates me as a fan, because I go, are you really going to pay their wages? No, you're not. So the deal will never happen. And as a fan, it's disappointing because those players may look at Spurs as a footballing side and go, I like the idea of that project, but my lifestyle is now this. I earn this. I can't go down for that. We all know in business, if you're being paid a certain amount, you're not going to devalue your skill set for a project. You go, guys, I'm worth more than this. And that's where we're now moving into this new phase where the board has to put its money where its mouth is, and the structure has to be there for us to move forward if that's what they want. If they're saying they want to compete on all counts, the squad's got to be bigger, better, and shown that it can do it.
Miles, let's close with you. Let's give you the last word on Spurs, Miles. It does appear, if what we're seeing is going to be the case, that Thomas Frank is going to be the new Spurs head coach. Can he be successful at this club? You know, the one thing I would say about Ange, and look, everyone knows my criticism of Ange, and I've not hidden away from that. The thing about Ange is that he knew the limitations and won under those limitations. And one of the common themes that we always hear when a manager comes into Tottenham is, I never knew what it would be like until you're here. Ange has been here, Ange has suffered through it, and he's won a trophy. I just wonder, the final question to close on to you, Marlon, is what is Thomas Frank's remit if he comes in at Tottenham? Ange in his first season got Tottenham 5th, despite, as we knew, was an inconsistent Premier League form, despite the first 10 games, without Harry Kane, I must add, going for a rebuild, changing the brand of football. The second season, he's going to win a European trophy. What is that remit for Thomas Frank, in your opinion? Is it just adjusting that league form to look prettier? Is it about winning trophies?
So, for me, I think his remit will be next season. Make sure you finish in a European place. So somewhere in the top 8, top 7, top 6. That will be the remit. Top 4 will be the goal. It will always be the goal to try and finish in that top 4 spot. But this is dependent. I'm working off. This is Daniel Levy. If this is Daniel Levy giving the remit. If it's a new board, it could be something completely different. It will be get out the Champions League group stage or the league phase. That will be the next thing. He has to get out of that. Make sure he qualifies for the next round. And then FA Cup or League Cup, one of them have a run in it. I'm going to say more likely like the FA Cup, because I think the League Cup next year will be whichever manager comes in, he's going to have to test the players and test his squad. So it's going to be like how it was with Ange in his first season. There's going to be many changes and see what he's got at his disposal, because you're not going to be able to take that risk. Like if we had the Europa League, where you can take that risk a little bit and put certain players in, you can't do that in the Champions League. You're just going to get torn open, and we're not going to take that as fans, especially if we're paying £70 to £90 to go watch a game, and you're going to go and test it out in the thing. So I reckon probably the FA Cup. If that's good enough for most of our fans, probably not, unfortunately. But if you're going from a manager that's won something 17th, and the big thing that's going to be, I think people haven't put into realization at the moment, is finishing 17th and trying to attract players next year is going to be a tough ask. And this is why the wages are going to become so important, because you're just taking out the manager that's won the cup. So you're taking that bit out. A lot of players are now looking at going, well, you've got a squad that finished 17th. You're in the Champions League this year. What's the likelihood you're going to be in the Champions League the year after? I'm not just going to come for one season. So the club now need to show the ambition to players who want to come in, that moving forward, we are going to be in Europe again most years and be competing at the top table again, because otherwise it's going to be Spurs mid-table trying to attract players and hopefully getting lucky with someone like a Harry Kane that will come through and become that world-class player for us.
It's going to be fascinating. Final question to you all, and this is to close it on. I'm going to ask these guys for one-word answers. Am I crazy with these three talkers? Let's try it. Who is under more pressure going into next season, if this was the case? Was Ange under more pressure going into season 3? Or is the new man, if it's Thomas Frank, in the first season, going to be under more pressure to deliver? Let's start with Dow on that. Dow, who would be under more pressure for you?
New man.
New man. Okay. Miles?
Yeah, definitely the new man will be under more pressure.
Lee?
Yeah, no, I agree, new man. I can't keep it one word, so I have to go back quickly. When talked about Romero, Romero's going to go. Like, I generally think that he's going to go. Right. And, you know, and I've said for a lot of the season as well, keep your eyes peeled for Man City sniffing around Dejan Kulusevski. Because I tell you, this is the thing. It's not even about. I don't want to finish on a doom and gloom, right? But you know, from a point of view of keeping your players, you saw the hug with Romero, and I take the point of us were saying earlier about all will be forgotten, but I don't think it is what with the likes of Romero. You've been talking about, Atletico Madrid interested in for weeks and months, Rick. And now that's just going to be compounded. So some of these reports coming out about players wanting to leave, maybe people with longer contracts, this, that, and the other. But a Romero, 2 years left on his contract. If we try and keep him around now and don't get him to sign a contract, we're going to lose out. We're going to go and sell him for 55, 60 million quid now, or do the mistake that we've been doing with the Christian Eriksen's, with the Dele Allis, with the people in the past where we didn't get rid of them at the right time. And again, it comes back down to that recruitment piece. What I would say about all of that stuff is, most Spurs fans, not all, but most Spurs fans would give up that bit of chaos in the first part of the summer to get the board right moving forward, because that's what we've been crying out for 24 years. So if that's the case, a little bit more short-term pain now to get some long-term gain. And that's, I know no one's...
I love the fact that 2 weeks ago we won a trophy and now we've got to go through more pain again. Why can't we just have
it's a restructure, isn't it? It's hard.
Get that. Look, I'm going to close very quickly. There's been some lovely messages from Kevin Danso, Mickey van der Ven, Guanara Vicario. Ben Davis actually just come out and said that he has got no update as to whether his contract is going to be extended by the football club. We understand there's an option to trigger there. Lee talks about Romero's future being up in the air. We understand also from a couple of different sources, Matt Law and Fabrizio Romano, that Heung-Min Son, we're getting news, has left some teammates and staff with the impression that he could leave this summer. There's believed to be interest from Saudi Arabia, and that is what's also been reported by Fabrizio Romano, where he has stated there's been conversations between Saudi clubs and Heung-Min Son's agents in recent weeks. It feels like there's going to be a lot of fallout from the decision to part way with Ange Postecoglou. And look, I think as we've seen throughout the show, and different opinions, there's been some for it, there's been some against it, but what you can't deny is that Ange Postecoglou will leave this club a legend. He's done something that not many managers can do, especially, we have to say this, under ENIC. He's won not only a European trophy, he's ended a 17-year trophy drought. I think we all here, despite my criticism of Ange Postecoglou in this last 18 months, definitely, a great start to his reign. I think we all here, on behalf of Last Word On Spurs, want to wish Ange Postecoglou all the very, very best for the future, because you know what, he's delivered to many, many people out there what was the greatest day of their footballing life. And I think, just to close on this point on Ange, which I do want to close on, it is absolutely extraordinary when you do think to yourself, Ange Postecoglou, fleeing from a military coup-stricken Greece as a child to seek refuge in Australia, to eventually end up winning a Europa League winning manager, which has an absolute insane trajectory and something you could be immeasurably proud of having to achieve. He will leave here immortal. Our gratitude will be eternal, and we thank you, Ange, for everything, and we wish you the very, very best of luck for your future as to what comes next. I want to say a massive thank you to Lee McQueen. Lee, thank you so much. It's been an amazing show. Miles, thank you so much for jumping on. We appreciate it. Dal, thank you so much. We're putting Dal on a boat and he's going to go have a nice summer break. Maybe not in the same boat as Russ, but they'll maybe be interconnected at some point during the latter part of pre-season. To you wonderful people out there, over 15,500 of you that have watched this show live, thank you so much for all your incredible support for Last Word On Spurs. We've laughed, we've cried, we've hugged. It's been emotional. And guess what? We're going through it all again. Only Tottenham.
We'll be doing another emergency show when Thomas Frank's announced, mate. So don't worry. It won't be too long, team. Just put your alarms on for 12 to 16 hours and Thomas Frank, new manager, Tottenham Hotspur, with the shirt, saying he's going to make us proud. Let's go.
Unbelievable. Look, Gary says here, thank heavens for the show. Dime says he wants it to be Xavi. Tiffany Andrew says here, 30% of the fan base on the ball fear losing an embarrassment more that they want to win. Fear-based decision-making is for losers, exactly what our board are. And again, many are saying, from the outside, it's obvious for me the plan. Levy wants a Brentford Supermax model, young, cheap, high-potential players with crucially low wages. We'll see all that to come and more from Dow, from Lee, from Marlon, from me. We've been the Last Word on Spurs. Thanks to Russ, thanks to Pat, thanks to Jim. It's been a full team effort. Thank you so much to all Wonderful Love out there. We'll be back with you when we know more. And as always, come on, you Spurs.
Come on.